looking and researching, and I was like, gosh, this is exactly what I do with students, or did with students up until this point, of really wanting them to have a voice to their faith, and to be able to walk out and ask the questions of, what do you know about God? What do you love about God? You know, all of those kinds of things. And what I loved the most was the partnership with the local church too, that it just really is hand in hand. And the goal is to get the kids to be able to lead.
Working with the local church to take the hope of Christ to every student in the United States. This is First Priority. Now here are your hosts, Steve Cherrico and Brad Skelling.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. My name is Steve Cherrico from First Party Greater Nashville, and also get to serve FP of America as a regional manager. And those of you who are our regulars will note that my frenemy, which is what he is, my frenemy Brad is not here today, which we are all so grateful for. Although after these 3 sessions, it may be reality that Brad never lets me on the podcast again, which is just great. So as you can see, I've got a new friend. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you.
So glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yep. How was your training?
It was great. A lot of really good information.
Well, you listen to Brad a lot, so I don't know how that could be. It was fairly, so we spend most of the podcast just picking on Brad, just so you know.
Okay.
That's how this goes. So as long as you get, no, seriously. So if you'll help the audience, Heather is a new staffer for First Party of America. If you'll help the audience, just tell them who you are, how you are, why you are, that fun stuff would be great.
Okay. So my name is Heather Bundy. I currently live in Roanoke, Texas. So for those of you that maybe will note it better as Dallas-Fort Worth area, I'm on the Fort Worth side of things. I've been married to my husband, Jeff, for 22 years.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yes, he is a Southern boy, born and raised Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi. Married to a West Coast girl. I was born and raised in Southern California, so a little bit in Northern California. We have 2 awesome children. Our son is William. He's about to start his senior year at Wayland Baptist University. And then our daughter Emma just graduated in May, and she will be going to Abilene Christian University.
Congratulations.
Yes, so we'll be empty nesters.
You'll have them both in school.
Yes.
And you'll have them both at least reasonably close.
Yes, Emma is about 2.5 hours away, and William's about 5 hours away. But then they're only 2.5 hours away from each other. So
wow.
Yeah, so they'll have a.
And are they close?
They are. They function more like twins. They're only about 17 months apart.
Really?
So yeah, they've never fought. They just kind of.
That's not twins. That's not the twins I know. That's
they
friends.
They really do get along and love each other a lot. So it's fun.
Great.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How does the gospel show up in your life, California girl?
So my journey has been interesting. I was raised Eastern European Catholic on my dad's side, Hispanic Pentecostal on my mom's.
Come on now. Those are some good fights. I like that. Those are good arguments.
And so my relationship with God was confusing when I was younger, right? Because I knew God existed. I knew that I loved God, but probably accepted God in middle school, but probably never really got solid till after college. Does that make sense?
Does, yeah, sure.
And just fell in love with the Lord after that. So since I was about 23, so 24 years, have had a passionate relationship for him.
Come on.
Started out in public education. That's my trade, or has been. And just really knew with our kids that I wanted to do something different. I wanted my kids to be able to walk away from high school and know who they were and whose they were as their primary.
Yeah, that's good.
So we did education a little differently with our children, and we're poured into that. And I've done a lot with ministry and been a head administrator of a school. But my goal is really churches and kids. And them really knowing and loving the Lord. So
that's great. I love that. I love the idea that you had an education background, and the first place it was most important was in your own home. Right? It's the story that ministers, guys and gals that share the gospel, right? They always hear from people that are older and wiser than them. You can pastor everybody you want, but if you're not pastoring your own kids and raising them up, you've missed the mark, right? So I love that you did the same with education. All right, so tell us a little bit about how you got onto. So Heather's a new part of the Fort Worth, Dallas-Fort Worth area staff for First Party of America. She's part of a district. Tell us a little bit about how you got there.
So we decided, as a family, we kind of talked and prayed through the season and decided that the Lord was leading me somewhere new. And he was silent through May and part of June. And then all of a sudden opened the door. I found you guys on Indeed.com.
Yep. Which we advertise a lot on.
Yes. Yep. Yes. And I'd had a mentor of mine just speak into, are you sure that God's going to use your educational giftings, or is he going to use your leadership and your organizational giftings instead? And the first thing that popped up in my feed was First Priority of America.
Interesting.
I'd never heard of it before.
Me neither.
I really started looking and researching, and I was like, gosh, this is exactly what I do with students, or did with students up until this point, of really wanting them to have a voice to their faith, and to be able to walk out and ask the questions of, what do you know about God? What do you love about God? You know, all of those kinds of things. And what I loved the most was the partnership with the local church too. That it just really is hand in hand. And the goal is to get the kids to be able to lead, and then to be able to lead them back to the church. So it just struck me, and filled out the application and started that process. And I love everything about it.
Well, those of us who watch and listen to our basis, you won't always love everything about it because people are involved. But one of the things I appreciate about what you just said is you're coming in on the year for Epic. And those of you who have jumped into the guide, it's about foundations. And what you just said is you love the idea of students grabbing the foundations of their faith and being able to execute that in their own life, right? Not just hear it, not just acknowledge it, but actually be able to walk it out, which is super cool. I love that that's one of your goals. So tell us about the area that you're in and where you're going to be launching schools. What part of that big, it's huge, that area that you're going to be launching in?
So my main focus is in, if you go by the ISDs, it's in Grapevine, Colleyville ISD, Southlake, Carroll. So that's your Grapevine, Colleyville, Southlake areas. Keller ISD, which is larger because you've got some outlier areas that are part of Keller but aren't necessarily Keller proper. And then Birdville ISD. So that's kind of my area there. So
great. The area that you are seeing the most success in the short time you've been around so far, of all those you just spoke of? What
I'm seeing and where my other teammates have started things is somewhat in that Colleyville area and then in Keller.
Interesting.
So
very cool. Yeah. All right. So looking out 12 months from now, and as an educator, you were able to do this probably not with much difficulty, right? So 12 months from now, what do you foresee? What would you love to be able to say, hey, that last 12 months was this? What things are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking forward to relationship building and jumping in and just really building relationships with youth pastors, with churches. And I'm looking forward to seeing it grow from what they've already started.
Yeah.
I love that pond effect of you drop the rock in and it goes out this way. And so I can't wait for the rock to drop and the ripple effect to just start happening. So even when you start in those small areas, to see it grow outward.
It's great. Well, as we begin to land the plane, I have one thought that I thought I'd give you in terms of just being the podcast, the vidcast. The whole point is we serve a couple different groups of folks. We serve staffers that have been around for a long time. We serve those that are considering being on staff, right? They opened up an Indeed thing and clicked and thought, I'll fill out the application, right? And then we serve students that happen to be super passionate about their campus or their area, right? So in thinking about that middle section of people who, because we're building our bench, we're building our team all over America right now. If you were to speak directly, and I'm going to have you do that, speak directly to somebody who has seen the link, they're considering one of the roles we have out there right now, and they're in the same place you were, where it's like, man, I don't know if I should do this or not. I don't know if I'd take a hard right turn from where I was. What would you say directly to that group of people that are considering this opportunity?
It's a good question. I would say start looking, start talking to people, and just find a way to get involved. What do you love and what are you passionate about? Are you passionate about coaching and being a part of that process? Are you passionate about, you want to serve, it goes back to that idea of time, talent, and treasure, right? Yeah. Which one are you really passionate about? The ministry is a growing ministry that just is equipping kids in so many different ways, but leading them ultimately back to the church. And what a great design. What a need we have for this culture today of our kids that are our next generation of leaders.
Yep.
So I would just say, find your niche, find what you're passionate about. If you don't get a question answered, find someone to answer it. Yep. Because the need is there and they're meeting the need at first priority. And I just love that.
Thank you. That's awesome. And I would say this, for those of you who are first or maybe second time listeners, viewers, the reality is there's a group of us here who have been around for a period of time. And I, like you, in 2001, when I walked into the first school, I didn't know what it was either. It was just a club of 6 kids that really kind of sat around and stared at each other and didn't know. And all my heart's desire was, I want to serve on a public school campus. I'm not a teacher, so how can I do that, right? And God began to form who I was for 6 years by being a volunteer, right? So whatever level you're coming in on, let me just encourage you, if the Holy Spirit is driving you towards it and you've done your due diligence, like Heather said, go ahead and take that next right step. Go ahead and walk in and see if you can serve and see what the Lord does. Some of you are going to end up being staffers, and that's super cool. Some of you are going to end up being the best volunteer because it's your joy, not your job, right? And some of us get to stay around for almost 20 years, and it's super fun. But whatever it is, let me encourage you, if the Holy Spirit has prompted you, find somebody to pray it out with you, find somebody to walk it out. And if you're not getting the answers you're looking for, which is where I started, steve@fpofamerica.com. I'll give you the yes, you can do it, storm hell with a water pistol answer. If you want details, our friend Brad at fpofamerica.com can give you the details, can give you worksheets, can walk you through not only our why, but our what. So until then, we're super grateful that you watched. We're super grateful you listened. Heather, thank you for being on today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Friends, thanks for being here. Please remember to like, comment, share on your platform of choice. And we look forward to next week on the podcast where, unfortunately or fortunately, if you're tired of me, Brad should be back. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.